Hello and welcome to episode 61 of the Mark and Me podcast. As always, I'm your host Mark, and joining me on today's episode is my favourite photographer on the planet. She's responsible for some of my favourite photos, some of my favourite album covers, and she's an absolute genius. So I'm thrilled to be joined by the one and only Lindsey Byrnes. Now before we get into that interview, and trust me on this one, it's an awesome interview and I'm really proud of it. I just want to touch base about the last episode. So on episode 60, I was joined by the 80s icon, the absolute legend that he is, Steve Guttenberg. And even saying it out loud right now doesn't seem real because I never thought he would get on this podcast. He hasn't done any interviews for a very long time, he doesn't do much press anymore, and he definitely doesn't do any podcasts. So to know that I got him on here as an exclusive, it still blows my mind now. But as I just said, on today's episode I'm joined by Lindsey Byrnes, and I'm absolutely thrilled with this interview. I'm very honest, and I let my guard down I think more and more as the episodes go on, so you get to see a bit more and hear a bit more about me, but it's more about Lindsey, and she's one of my favourite guests to date, and I really love the honesty and the kind of chemistry that we had from the start. So let's just get straight to it. Here's me and the amazing Lindsey Byrnes. Lindsey, thank you for joining me today on the Mark and Me podcast.
Well, you're welcome. Hello, Mark.
How are you doing?
I'm great. Can you hear me well?
I can hear some noise in the background, which I'm going to have to edit out.
I'm running a marathon.
Nice. How many miles are you doing on your marathon?
Oh, I'm on the 13th mile. I'm just about to...
Wow.
Yeah. You know, underachiever.
What I want to do is basically, for those people that have tuned in today and have not heard of you, where the fuck have they been all their life? But, more importantly, where did it start for you when you were growing up? When was it that you got that first camera and thought, I want to take photos for a living?
I should have an answer for this. I feel like it changes all the time. When did I get my first camera? I don't know. When I was working at a art magazine, Juxtapose. I was working at a publishing house that published Juxtapose magazine, Thrasher magazine, at the time, Slap skateboard magazine, and my boss gave me a Yashica T4 and wanted me to take photos. I think like part of it was that I wanted to prove that when I was going on these trips, like selling ads, because that's what I was doing, that I wasn't fucking off, that I was like doing something. And I remember getting published, like just like an event, and being like, oh, this is really cool. Like I loved seeing my name in the magazine. Yeah. I loved that feeling. But I wasn't a photographer in that capacity at all. It was just like on the events page. I didn't come to it for a really long time. I didn't think that there was any possible way that I was like an artist of any kind. I thought I was a business person. Like, that was how I was brought up, was that like you have to like be business if you wanted to survive. Yeah. So only the like 1% of the 1% of the 1% could ever make a living or feed themselves in the arts field. That was kind of what I don't know if it was what my parents said or what my filter was as a young child, what I heard. So it wasn't something that I set out to do in any way, but I liked it. I liked how that felt.
So when you were working for this sort of skateboard magazine, were you kind of feeling a bit limited with the amount you could do with, a guy on a skateboard, or did you try and make it as kind of...
Well, I wasn't even shooting photos for
nothing.
That. So Thrasher is like a massive skateboard magazine. Yeah. And Juxtapose is a big art magazine now. It was really new at the time. This is like, I started working there in 97. So I was 2 years old.
Yes, of course.
No, I didn't feel limited at all because I was obsessed with the skateboard photographers and the music aspect and the idea that I couldn't believe that that's what they did. I still couldn't understand it. It didn't like filter in my brain space that like that was all they did was do photos. And so it was just like it was a really gradual progression for me as far as learning that. I just kind of got the bug. I I decided to enroll into a class, and still it was like really, one of the skateboard photographers was like, hey, do you want to go shoot this music show? And I was like, yes. So I did that. And, I think I shot like 10 rolls of film, and maybe 5 frames turned out awesome. And I cried. I was crying. And he was like, no, you don't understand. Like, these are great. You're lucky if you get like a couple good shots. And he was so encouraging to me. But I remember feeling like I had failed and I was like awful. But he was like, no, you just got to keep trying. I just liked it. But I was doing ad sales. That's what I was doing. I was doing ad sales, and then I was doing marketing for all the magazines.
So was your mentality, I don't think I can make a living out of this, and I'm going to have to do the shitty corporate job of 9 to 5, or?
Yeah, it honestly just did not come into my brain space. I also didn't think I was any good. Like, I didn't look at my stuff and be like, oh, this is great, until, so Yashica T4 is just this film point and shoot, and I actually have, I think I'm on like my 5th one now. I've got like a graveyard of them. I'm at a point with this camera right now that I don't even like it, but I still have it.
Yeah.
The photographer was it was a behind the scenes for Sports Illustrated, and he was shooting with the Yashica T4, and he said, it's not the camera, it's not your gear, it's your eye. And I started kind of just looking at my photos a little bit differently, and I was like, oh, wait, I'm not bad at this. This looks cool.
Yeah.
And for somebody who's got like low self-esteem and voices in my head, which kind of means that I'm just a little bit self-obsessed as well, it was a nice feeling. And so I just kept going. That photographer, by the way, had a very, very, very massive career, and also crashed and burned, and it's like embarrassing to say that he was a huge influence, because he like basically took advantage of a bunch of women, and so we just don't name him anymore, but he was a big influence for me, so yeah. There's that.
Then at this point you were obviously, this isn't the day of when you could look at your photos right away. You'd get them developed and be waiting to see which ones were good and which ones were bad, but when was it that you were kind of getting noticed and people were saying, can you come and shoot for me? Or, you actually invested in a better camera, or thought, fuck it, I'm going to do this as a living?
So it was years later. I made my way down to LA, and a job that I had didn't work out. And I met this wedding photographer, and she took me on this like insane trip to Mexico. Her name's Mel Barlow. She is so talented, and she took me on an all expense paid trip. All I had to do was second shoot this like 3-day extravagant crazy wedding, and she believed in me. I was like, oh wait, I can like do this as a job. It was like little by little, Tegan and Sarah asked me to go on tour with them. And I was like, oh my gosh, do I get this marketing job that I have an interview for? Or do I go on tour with this amazing band, and that I have a personal relationship with? And that, it was like a big decision for me. Door number 1, that's kind of like guaranteed, or door number 2, which is like a fantasy. By no chance, I mean, do I get noticed? Do people ask me? I don't know. I think that I'm still not there yet. So, I don't know. Next question. You
mentioned then as well that you were taken to a live show to shoot some pics and stuff, and there's a big difference in shooting someone in a car park or trying to look cool, but when you go and try and capture a band, you don't just want to capture them at any point. You try and, I don't know, when I see a photo of yours from any band, it doesn't matter if they're underground or a big multi-million selling band, you capture the moment of being there, and you feel like, fuck, I'm at this gig, and not many people capture that. I don't know how you do it.
Thank you, thank you that I'm doing what I want. That's all I want to do.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do, is I'm a little obsessed with a moment, and it's in my career. I think that it can be frustrating for those around me. At a live show, that's one thing. It's kind of my time, and although I get frustrated with the limitations, sometimes you only get 3 songs. If you are shooting for the band, you have more access. But it's the kind of searching for that moment, and I'll just like shoot the whole show because I want that moment, and I probably caught the moment, but like I don't know, I never think that I get the moment. I want all the moments.
Yeah.
And it's fun. It's shooting live. There's so many good live photographers now, like so many of these guys and girls who are just like out on tour every day shooting these shows. And a lot of these bands, they'll have kind of a similar set list every night, but some of them switch it up.
Yeah.
So that photographer is like, probably, I wanted to do like this book. I thought like just a written book of like all the moments I wish I'd caught but didn't.
Oh, nice.
Just to like save my brain. Nobody would care but me. You know, like, oh, when he looked that way and spit out his mouth, and you know, or she snarled at the camera and I fucked up and didn't get it. You know, like all this stuff I think about like after the show, and I'm like, I did a terrible job. So I'm glad that you feel that way, because that's what I'm trying to do.
It seems now that, you know, with Instagram and all these different social medias, that everyone counts themselves and classes themselves as a photographer just because they put a nice filter on it. And, you know, let's be honest, some people are very lucky and they have an iPhone with them or something, and they take one photo that night that turns out to look pretty damn good. But do you feel that the market's a bit flooded at the moment? Like, when I go to festivals and gigs, there seems to be as many photographers now as people in the crowd. It's pretty insane.
My insecurity would say that, yeah. You know, what I get from shooting live shows, what I've gotten, is this connection to what's going on. When I was younger, when I would go to shows before I was shooting, I was like getting wasted at shows, and I wasn't connecting at all. you know? And that was another thing was, wow, how personal should we get, Mark?
I think we should. I think we go all out.
Should we get really personal? Should I give it to you?
Yeah, just go with it.
Yeah, you're really kind. You have a really kind voice.
Well, just go with it.
You know, I stopped drinking, and when I stopped drinking, I love live music. I love music. I was in a couple very small bands that never did anything, and I needed something to do, and this was a great way for me to feel like I had something to do while I was going and seeing these bands and enjoying music, and it was really positive for me. So I don't know if I don't want to take that away from people and be like, you know, not everybody's a photographer. Anybody can be a photographer. Anyone can be a painter. Anyone can do it.
Yeah.
There's a business side to what I do that is hard, and that is challenging, and that it takes, you know, I really think that my marketing background, I was a marketing director for those magazines, I was a marketing director for a music festival, for Coachella actually right after, and I think that having that is a really big advantage to bands, like having that experience, because I know the assets that we're trying to capture. And not everyone has that. Yeah, go out, experience. Like, everyone can be a bird watcher. You know what I mean?
It's true.
But it's like, if, you know, the dedication, there's a lot of pounding the pavement that comes along with it. You know, and some people get really lucky and have a team around them, and I've done, my career has been really DIY. I've had some people help me out along the way. I really appreciate, you know, but as far as the actual like business back end of it, the majority of it, I don't want to say like I do it all alone, but it's a little more DIY than a lot of people I know.
The thing is as well, everyone has different perceptions. So someone will say to me, "Oh man, I've tried so hard. I wish I could make it as a podcaster. I've worked my arse off." And it's like, what have you done? I bought a microphone, I bought a mixer, I've stood outside a film premiere and no one came out, and I gave up. And I'm like, that's not hard work. That's not wanting it. That's kind of having a fantasy. There's a difference of then doing that every single day, morning, day and night, until you get lucky, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and there are really persistent people, and also you're likable. You know, you're a likable person. So your emails are nice, your reach outs are nice. You follow up when you say you're going to follow up, and that's a huge part of it. And then you get the interview, you do a good interview, and then people are like, oh wow, you know, it opens you up to something else. So it's getting the client and then doing 110% of the job. You know, and that's not to say that, like, everybody likes working with me. I'm sure I'm really annoying.
Half an hour in and I like you, so you're not annoying yet.
Yeah, so I don't know. I know I'm annoying because sometimes I annoy myself. You know, those days where I just get overwhelmed. But yeah.
So when the band's not on stage, and this is where I saw most of your work, I think one of the first images I saw of yours was from the band Death from Above, or I think back then they were Death from Above 1979. I think I saw a really kick-ass black and white photo, and I was like, that's, you know, I didn't mean to be ignorant, but I never really, I saw a great photo and I wouldn't ever delve much deeper. I'd just be like, oh, that's cool. But then I started seeing the same names cropping up, and I saw Paramore, and I saw Churches, and I keep seeing this name. It kind of made me want to explore more. Like, I noticed that I got to the point where I could see a photo and I know it was yours. And
really?
Yeah. And
that's so cool.
It's a cool game. It's like, is that one of hers? And I go on, it's like Lindsey. I'm like, fuck yeah, I know. Not every time, but I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm starting to, you know, I'm not a photographer myself, but I was like, I'm starting to realise, like, that's her style, that's her. She's captured that, man. You know.
When we're not recording this or whenever, I want to know why or how. Like I constantly ask myself, I'm like, do I have a style?
It's so, say for example, I went to New York with my dad last year, and I went to see Paramore. They were playing in some in Central Park, and they had in the background one of your photos of the three of them, and the way that they look on that photo, it's like a look of, we want this photo to be taken, we want to be here, we're having a fucking great time, and before this photo was taken, we've been sat around talking and mucking around and having a great day. And then cool. And then like, shit, we need to stop and actually have a photo because that's why we're here, and now we'll go back to fucking about. And it's captured in a way that most bands are trying to look cool. You know, you get these rock bands and metal bands who are trying to look like, yeah, we're Metallica and all this. With the photos you take, everyone looks at ease and that they're just having fun, and that's what I saw when I see photos of Churches and Death from Above and Paramore and all these bands. I see this relaxed, different side to the band that lets you inside, so I feel like I know them. And I don't know how you capture that in a photo, because it's not luck, because you do it time and time again.
This is so nice. I'm gonna have to hire you to write my bio, because I've never had one of those written. Thank you. I think that's the challenge, right?
Yeah.
Is sometimes and like you were saying before we got on to do the official podcast, is sometimes you get such a limited amount of time with people, and there's a challenge. You know, our jobs are very similar.
Yeah.
You know, when you know a band, like I know Paramore, Haley and I have a very long history and trust, and I love her. So I hope, and same with her bandmates, Taylor, Zach, and you know, like I care about them.
Yeah.
But this is over a, you know, I guess now like 8-year span of working with them. That is kind of a different scenario, right? That's one that's like long term and has brewed for over time. And also, like, yeah, we have a job to do, and they've trusted me to do this job. So there's part of me that feels really anxious about it, and for me, the best thing that I can do is try to get a real feeling, try to get them to feel good, and like they made a good decision, you know. With them, like with her in particular, it's interesting because we can explore a lot of different, when we get time together, we can explore different things and have 5 minutes. We could literally have 5 minutes of shooting and get a cover of, you know, and I've been like, go over there for 5 seconds, you know, we just have like a moment. But with other like bands or celebrities or people that I'm taking pictures of, sometimes you just get like a couple minutes and however much time they've allotted. So that's the challenge. I don't know. I mean, what's your tactic?
I just go for guests now, and whatever they tell me I'm allowed, I will take the piss. This is letting my secret out now, but I will. I got told I could only have 10 minutes with Hannibal, so everyone said you can have 10 minutes with Mads Mikkelsen. We were still there after 45 minutes because they get involved in the conversation. It's not a tactic. It's just the way I am, and they're not wanting to go. They're happy to sit there, and they've let their guard down, and we're sitting there, and it's comfortable, and they're like, "Oh shit, it's been 45 minutes. I better go." But I've never had a guest saying, "I want to go." You know, you just kind of... it sounds weird. The good ones, they feel like a friend at the end because you've talked and, you know, given your heart and they give you yours. And you just kind of think, well, you know, there's a special moment there that I've captured, like on a photo, but it's just audio-based. And I don't know, it's a strange one. I always look back like it's a diary. I always look back that one day I can look back at all these and think, I did that, and that's my moment I captured with that person. We shared something that day in that moment that no one else has shared with them. It's a strange one. Yeah,
I truly think that what you do is much more challenging because getting people to open up verbally is much more vulnerable than in a photo.
But the thing is, I've been in moments, and I've never revealed this until now, but I've been there in moments where people have said the wrong thing, or they've said something that needs to not be on the recording, and I've always took it off. I've always respected them. I've never been a journalist and tried to get a headline where someone's slagged someone off or said that. And that's not me. That's not my nature. I'd rather have a nice positive and give someone that listens a bit of an inspiration or something, you know?
Right. And I think that, and now we've found the common ground. That's been what I've stood by.
Yeah.
You know, is, okay, we're going to try this. I had this happen recently where I got a portrait session and we tried something that was more, I don't know what the best way to describe it, but it was more like risque or
adventurous.
It wasn't safe.
Yeah.
And they requested that I don't turn in that look. Because like a lot of times with these like fashion magazines, you give them a couple different outfits, whatever. It's boring stuff. But and it's the best one. It's the best one, and they look the best. It's the most compelling, and they don't want me to turn it in, and so I'm not going to. You know, I can only push as much.
Yeah. But
that trust, and the truth is that it has probably held me back. You know, I don't post private moments. As far as like my Instagram following, I have a strong-ish following, but not anything compared to a lot of these photographers. And it's challenging to keep some of that stuff private. You know, the challenging part is just reconciling that in myself, where I'm like, it's long game. This is long game. You know, the only thing that I have is my integrity.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna like put anybody on blast.
No.
And if they don't want it, or they don't like that photo, or, you know, giving people that kind of control and not forcing them into a corner and just being like, look, you can trust me. And, you know, so...
It goes a long way. It goes a long way. Like you said, the waiting game is a lot better. I've had things that would put me on the front of newspapers that they've come out with, and literally their publicist rung me straight afterwards and said, please chop that out. How much money do you want? We'll get it chopped. And I just turned around and said, I don't want any money. It's already chopped. I'm not here to try and get a cheap 5 minutes of fame. This is not what it's about. And they're like, oh my God, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, like I'm not an arsehole, you know, it's not what I want to do, you know?
Yeah, and you just hope, you know, that word, you know, as far as if you're talking just your career and the success of your podcast or the success of, you know, my photography career, I just hope that gets passed along. I hope that less of the she's insane and a bit neurotic and obsesses over where a lens cap is. I don't know. Like, I hope that the other stuff overshadows that, you know.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? It really is. I think that's where, like you said, our common ground is. It's something that, you're not going to get famous overnight and you're not going to be a millionaire, but it feels bloody good to be real, and I think that's what people prefer than just some fake bullshit.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of bands that have hired me again, and, you know, Paramore, Tegan and Sarah, fun way back when, that like really without them, without like everybody there, like the label, like believing in me, like I wouldn't have this, you know. There's like a trail of people who lifted me up, and we had a mutual understanding and trust. So like I owe it to them to protect them.
The thing is as well, once you've got that trust, it leads on to more. So I know you said you worked with Paramore and Hayley and stuff, but that obviously led to then Good Die Young, which is something I'm behind, and I'm always rooting for Hayley and Brian to be in every big store in the world, and I love the fact that they've done it themselves, and you're part of that, so it just leads on, like the knock-on effect of, you know, I always find that the good interviews then lead to interviewing someone else, because they tell their friends. It sounds like Wayne's World, and they tell their friends, and they tell their friends, but it's true, you know?
Yeah, exactly. That's how it works.
So one thing I was really curious about yourself, obviously you do a lot of still photography, and like I said, you've got this style, but surely there's a film in you somewhere. I just see this director. I know it's a lot more work and a lot more consistency, and if you're feeling anxious or you're feeling like you don't want to go and leave the house that day, you're going to have to every day for a long period, but surely you've got a film inside you.
Oh, man. I mean, I'm not much of a writer, so I've got a lot of ideas, and I've directed a few little things. I've directed a few music videos, and you know, I'm kind of about the collaboration at this point.
Yeah.
A lot of times that's what will happen. Well, a band will come to me, they will say, this is what my music, you know, let's translate what the image that's going to go along with that. It feels like a collaboration. As far as like a film, I mean, I've got a few ideas for sure, but I have ideas for days, and whether or not they ever come to fruition, you know, that would be a dream for sure. That would be, been on huge movie productions and seen what goes into that and what that looks like, and the energy is, I could just stay there for ever just watching everything that goes on.
What about the prep work? Because some people just think, you know, I turn up to gigs now and every fucking person has a phone out and no one listens and captures it for themselves. Everybody wants to try and, for some stupid reason, get it on their phone and go back and listen to it when it's like and it sounds shit and it looks tossed, but for some reason everybody thinks they can just capture it. But you're different. You must sit there and prep, you know, when you turn up to your shoots or to gigs. Have you got this kind of ritual that you do, or a process that you follow, or is it a case of trying to, you know, how does it go about?
Yeah, I mean, I decide what cameras we decide. It depends on the scale of the shoot and how I want to do it, and a lot of times I think it's kind of been the same thing that I've done my whole life. Like, even when it's like, write this essay when you're in third grade, you know, like I labor over it, and then I just erase it all and then write 3 words. You know, I think that I stress out about it. I have anxiety about it. I wake up at 5 in the morning, even though I've like thought of every which way. That usually is part of my process. You know, the night before depending on the scale of the shoot. So if it's a more chill shoot, it's the night before I decide what kind of gear I'm bringing. You know, if it's something where I have to rent, I got to think about this stuff, you know, days ahead. So it's all scaled to the job. But the ritual part, I'm usually up at 5 in the morning freaking out about something that I think that I forgot. And like...
I'm so glad it's not just me.
Breakdown
yeah.
before I go. That's my ritual. I'm like driving all the people in my life crazy. But yeah, I just had a shoot. I just did a shoot the day before yesterday, and that happened.
Yeah.
I woke up at 5 in the morning. I started emailing everyone like, we forgot this, and nobody responded.
Did it go okay? Was the positive outcome?
It was awesome. It was a great shoot, and everybody was happy. So if everybody's happy and I'm the only one who's like, it didn't look exactly how I thought it would look in my head, then like I can come around to a point where I'm like, oh, you know, I actually said to I have an assistant on shoots usually now, but when they're bigger, and I have one guy that I really like to work with, and he said, no, this was great. This was something different. And I was like, I feel like I just got all the same photos I always get, which maybe means that I do have a style. Like, I was like, oh.
Yeah.
And and we had like a big melt. I just have a meltdown. So like I melt down in the morning, and then we have a really great shoot, and then I melt down at night and think I did a terrible job. But last night I did all the outputting for the photos, and there's like 400 selects, so I can't seem to narrow it down. So that's a good problem.
I think a lot of people don't realise, and it's not trying to be patronising to the people that don't do photography, etc. But everyone thinks you get a camera, you go to a gig, a band's on stage, you take a photo, you print it out, and it's done. But it's all about the editing, and a lot of people don't realise the process involved and the amount of work. Sometimes you might just capture that photo, but some of the photos that really stand out for magazine covers and album covers have been edited, and you take full ownership, don't you? You don't have an editor or anything. It's all you. You do the photography and then the editing as well. Is that something you really enjoy and get invested in, or is that kind of a chore?
I think it depends. It's like anything else. It's like when time does not permit, then it feels like a chore.
Yeah.
When I have the time, it's really fun. And the editing process is, it's like there's a few steps. So the actual like editing down of the number of photos. What am I going to turn in? Am I going to pick the right ones? And narrowing down those moments and finding those. Sometimes it's really easy. Sometimes it's really hard. And then it's actually like color correcting and doing all of that stuff. I don't know. I would be open. I think I would be open to collaborating with somebody on that, but maybe not. Thanks for bringing that up.
I get that asked a lot, and I can't let anyone else near it. It's like my baby, even though it's recorded. If someone said to me now, "Hey, that interview with Lindsey, do you want me to go and edit it? I'll chop out all the shit and I'll do this," and I'm like, "Fucking no way, that's mine. Like, get off. I am going to make sure that that's how I want it to be." I'm too protective.
I don't know. I think sometimes I am and sometimes I'm not. It really depends on what we're trying to achieve and what the job is. We can't forget that I'm a commercial photographer a lot of times.
Yeah.
So being a job, that means that I have to adhere to what the bigger thing is, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes it's necessary for, and I completely understand and respect what you're saying, but also I think it's more sensitive when you're dealing with people's words.
Yeah.
If I'm working for a band and I'm handing over photos to their people, it's kind of up to them.
Yeah, that's fair.
So it's a process of letting go, but a lot of times I'm just happy if they're happy.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So I'm not like, I kind of wish that I was like super duper art freak, where I was like, no, don't, their eye has to look that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, but I'm not actually. I'm going to be real. I'm not.
The thing is, you have to please someone, so the label's going to have to say, "Well done, Lindsey," or the band's going, "I only have to please myself," And
I'm a people pleaser. I want you to like me. I want them to like me.
Yeah.
That's what I want. So I'm just going to be honest, because when I was a kid, it was certainly honest. It was very hard for me to be honest in this. Is like one of my number one goals is like, I want you to like me.
Yeah.
So when somebody hires me, or like I get hired for something, I want that person to like me. That's what I'm trying to achieve with this photography thing, right?
Yeah. Make as many friends as you can.
I want to be liked. So you're absolutely right. Like if somebody's like, "Hey, we love this," and like I'm, job well done. Thank you so much. I'm a people person. People ask that question all the time. Are you a dog person or a cat person? And I'm like, I'm a people person.
We have a lot in common. Hell of a lot. I'm the same. 100%.
A dog, cat, they're going to like me if I feed them.
It's so true.
For the most part.
Throw a ball across a room and already you've got a best friend, yeah.
I'm like, I got a snack in my pocket. But that's like the truth.
A cheesy question that you've probably been asked a million times, and I'm going to get it out the way, but what's your favourite piece of work, or what was it like when you first saw an album cover with your piece of work? Like the Church's album cover is so iconic, so cool, and it must be nice to go, I took that.
Yes, it was really nice to say that I took that, and also I collaborated with them. And also with Warren Fu, who's an incredible art director and director. He's done so much stuff. So it was just actually really amazing that they wanted me to capture those images, and that particular image. When I was a little kid, my dad had a really big record collection.
Yeah.
And I used to just look at those records all the time. And I remember one of our friends' brothers got a tattoo gun, and he was going to, tattoo us, and we were in high school. And I remember looking on the albums to see if there was anything on the album that, I wanted to get tattooed. And then I got scared, and I didn't do it. And our other friend ended up with, a rose on her hip or something.
Amazing.
But I remember, looking at those, album covers. And I just never in a million years, I just thought they were so cool, and I never in a million years thought that I would be part of creating something like that. And, I keep saying there's a million people behind it, but it feels really special. And sometimes when I'm shooting, I'll think about that, and I'll be like, man, when I was a kid, I looked, and it's kind of what you were saying, too, is I looked at this stuff and was like, what was going on during that photo session? And sometimes I realize that I'm creating those moments that with these people that other people might go, what was going on then? It's
not like as well that you've done some small little punk ska band that are in a garage for your uncle's son, like your nephew. It's Churches, which are probably one of the biggest selling bands, especially over here right now. So that's going to be in 10, 15 years looked at like people sometimes look at stuff like, I don't know, the Beatles or the Beach Boys. They're iconic album covers that in 10, 20 years, people are going to, or maybe longer, 30 years, are going to be like, that's such a great album. Look at that cover. It's iconic,
Cool.
And that's a cool feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. I like that a lot.
Imagine being the guy that took the photo of the Beatles on Abbey Road. He took that just of them for mucking around, crossing the road. How many people have gone, cool as fuck, Yeah,
and that has been a photo reference forever for every band, I love Churches. They're such a great band. I absolutely love their music so much.
Yeah.
And this is where I get cheesy. It's like, what a special honor for real.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about that.
Everybody in the world was doing their most played music on Spotify a few weeks ago. And my number one was Get Out by Churches, and I'm seeing them in a few weeks, and I just think Lauren and everything in that band, I just think no one's doing what they're doing right now, and it's fucking awesome. I never get bored of them. They're brilliant.
Oh, I feel really lucky that I've become friends with Lauren. So I'm going to tell her that you said that. I had lunch with her yesterday, and I think that it's really nice that I can, and not to be all like, hey, I had lunch with her, but it's I don't think that you can ever hear that stuff enough.
No.
I think that it's awesome. I'm going to get off the phone with you, and I'm going to text her and be like, oh my gosh, I did this thing, and this guy Mark, and he was talking about you, blah blah, because it's everybody needs that.
Yeah, because it's how many people focus too much on the negative. If you see a tweet, I sound like my dad, a tweet or a Instagram picture now, say if it's the biggest celebrity in the world, I don't know, like Eminem or someone, you go to the first comment that's been liked 10 million times, it's always something like, hey, you got fat, or hey, don't you look a dickhead, or I wish you would do the album you used to do, and all this. There's never, the top comment on YouTube or anything is never, wow, what a fucking groundbreaking song, or how cool do you look, or well done for having 30 years in the rap business, which, there's not enough positivity.
Yeah, it's wild. And you're obviously really attracted to bands with integrity, people with integrity. Lauren is so incredible. Her moral compass is so strong, and her vision is so strong, and it really shows through, I think, in like the decisions that she makes and has made in her career. And I'm so excited to, this was a really great record, and I always get really excited to see what people do next. I'm excited they're playing Coachella. I hope I get to go this year. So I love that band. I don't even need to be reminded, because every day I'm like, oh yeah, I love that band. You know what I mean? I listen to them all the time.
And they're British. They're one of ours.
Yep, they're one of yours. They're one of yours. It was hard for me to understand her when she talked at first.
Can you remember the first album cover, or the first magazine cover that had your published? And I'm not talking just like a magazine that's local to your area, like the first one where you bought a magazine in the shop, or you went out and was like, fuck, look in the CD store, there's my picture.
Oh, that had something inside.
Yeah, that was you. You were like, that's my work, look, I'm in there.
Oh, I think it was Thrasher. So that's why this is kind of a weird, unfair question, right? Because I do believe that I was published at the same place that I was working as an ad salesperson.
Yeah.
So, wait, was it?
Okay, let's switch it then. Let's go to album. Yeah. When was the first time you walked into a record store and you were like, there's my work?
I don't know. I think it was, I think it was Steel Train.
Cool.
Yeah, I think it was Steel Train, which was Jack Antonoff's other band. So now he's in now he has Bleachers.
Yeah.
He had Fun and Steel Train. Steel Train was before Fun, but it was also simultaneous. So I believe that was my first album cover. Am I wrong? I might be wrong. I'll be that person that's like, don't print that.
No problem.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't. I don't know. That's a hard one for me.
I'm going to wake up to an email from you at like 4 a.m. saying, nope, yeah, that needs to come out. It wasn't, it was 5 this.
5 a.m. I'm like, we talked for too long.
Yeah.
I had too much coffee. Can we redo? I've literally had a pot of coffee today.
Good.
That is not an exaggeration.
So I've obviously been quite positive. You've had a lot of ass kissing on this interview. It's been very, very positive.
Love it. Love it.
But,
I love a good...
But... When's it not been so good? When's there been a shoot that you've gone, I want to stop, I want to throw my camera in the bin and I never want to see a photo ever again? Or has it never got that bad?
It's never gotten that... I've had uncomfortable moments.
Yeah.
I've definitely had a shoot this year that... And I don't know how detailed I can get about it, but it was... It was extremely challenging. It was extremely challenging from every aspect. There was just no way that I could turn it around. And it ended up turning out, the final shoot ended up turning out really beautiful. They had some very strong... Let me just put it to you this way. I can't say who it was.
No.
But they requested... I found out later that they requested that no horizontal shots were used.
Strange.
I'm dumbfounded by this request.
Yeah.
They said no landscape is what they said, and so I immediately was like, oh, they don't want to show the landscape, but what they meant upon further investigation was that they only wanted vertical shots, which to me was really funny because I was like, should I thought about making them triangles or squares yeah. or hexagons and turning them in that way. It was so strange because I could take any one of those horizontal shots, which were beautiful, by the way, not because of me, but because of the entire team. And I could have cropped them into vertical photos. I don't know. It was so silly. And, it turns out that person had a lot going on. And it was announced the next day just how much they had going on.
Yeah.
So the challenge was keeping my head on straight and fighting the obstacles. Not fighting the obstacles, but jumping over the obstacles as they were thrown my way that day. I just feel like when things like that happen, when it's hard to keep the people happy, I don't give up. It just makes the next shoot that much easier.
You appreciate the other stuff a lot more, don't you?
Yeah, the only time that I really feel like I want to give up is when I, try to manifest something, or I've envisioned working with someone or something and it doesn't happen and I get disappointed, or, I'm going down the Instagram K-hole, which I think that everybody does. I mean, the more and more that I pay attention to people and their social media, and when I see somebody who's like erased all their photos or they've stopped following everyone, or, I'm like, oh, you're feeling what I'm feeling. Or they're like, I need to go on a social media cleanse, and they like put it up on their stories. And I'm like, I'm not alone, because it's so easy, and especially I think as a photographer, to be looking and it looks like everyone is just like, smashing it in a way that seems unattainable,
But that's
my desire is to like work with as many people and experience as much and create as much as possible. So in those moments, in those hours, you're just like going down this hole. It starts out with inspiration, right?
Yeah.
It starts out with me being like, I want to look at this because I want to be inspired. And then I'm like, I will never be good enough.
But isn't that the worst thing? Isn't that like I'm always jealous of the people that can cut themselves off social media for so long. I as much as I love it, I think Instagram is to blame for a number of people having eating disorders and having anxiety and stress, because nobody publishes on there a photo of them crying or feeling shitty with no makeup on. It's always, look how great I am, look how amazing my life is, look how... It's like an IKEA catalogue. Everyone's like, look how fucking great my life is, look how sexy I look today, and it's not achievable. Like, I wake up and I look like shit, my hair looks like shit, but I'm not going to take a photo and put it on Instagram and say, look everyone, because I look awful. It's false, it's all a bit make-believe.
Yeah, I have a hard time putting photos of myself on my Instagram. So, yes, I agree. I agree.
We are going to have to use a photo of you when we publicise this episode, so good luck with that.
Well, my go-to photo of myself is usually half face with a friend.
Cool.
So it's usually half of my face, and then there's somebody who's really cute in the other part of the photo.
Well, you can decide which one you want.
I'll give you a half face. I'll give you like a half face photo. That's
okay, that sounds good. This question I know you've had a number of times because I've done some research, but I'm going to ask you because this is a question I ask every single person that's ever been on the podcast.
Maybe I'll give you a different answer. Maybe I'll lie this time.
Honestly, there are going to be people that have tuned in, that are fans of your work, that have got themselves a Canon camera for Christmas, or they've asked for a decent little SLR camera, and they want to be you. They want to be the next big thing. What advice do you give? Because they might not have the opportunity to be working in the industry. They might be going to local gigs. They might be, I don't know. But what's the advice to get yourself noticed?
I mean, that I don't know, because like I said, I still don't feel like I'm noticed. Like, I can't even believe you're talking to me. As far as advice, well, my today's advice is...
Drink coffee.
Drink coffee. Try not to compare yourself. I had a photographer I worked for a couple times. His name is Joseph Coltice. He's insanely talented, massive photographer. And I had a shoot, and I called him, and I said, I don't know how to do this. And he's like, stop trying to be me. Don't look at my photos and try to do what I do, because you're going to do what you do. That was a really good piece of advice.
Yeah.
I think, because you can do that all day long. Oh, my stuff doesn't look like that, or the lighting's different, or you make what you're going to make.
Yeah.
And kind of try to just find your own path, find your own style.
That's good.
Yeah, find what you're good at. you know.
I had a comedian on last week who's on Netflix. He's called James Acaster. It's been my biggest ever episode. No pressure for you to follow it up, but you know, it's
all in the editing. It's all in the editing.
It's crazily big. But I said to him, like, who influenced you? And you know, you can look at all the big, you know, huge people in the business. You can look at all the huge comedians out there. But he said he stopped going to these shows and trying to be like them, and just kept going to make himself him. And
yeah,
I think too many people don't get the time or the space to step back and say, actually, I want to be Mark, or I want to be Lindsey, instead of I want to be Andy Warhol, or I want to be, you know, Zane Lowe. I need to stop and say, well, actually, Zane Lowe's already Zane Lowe, so why don't I become Mark? And people want to then listen to me instead of Zane, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is there's enough ears to listen to both.
Yeah.
You know, or all. And we got a lot of time on our hands as humans. And I think that there's enough love out there for everyone, you know, as our population grows.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing to really remember. And also this, you know, thank you so much, because this has been really helpful for me to remind me, like, yeah, I get really caught up sometimes in I need the right lighting, or I need this to look like this, or I'm not good. You know, there's certain things that I'm not good at. I'm not good. This has been, yes, Mark, this has been really helpful for me in that remembering that what I'm good at, you know, and what I'm good at is capturing moments. And that's what I like to do.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if the light's just a little bit off, or something's not exactly perfect, to kind of let that go and concentrate on the moment.
Yeah.
And also, and that's, you know, that's what I really want more than anything, is what you were describing as far as having people feel like they want to be there. There's nothing worse or more terrifying to me than having somebody show up and us have to work together, or in my mind get to work together, and in their mind have to work with me.
Yeah.
And not want to be there.
But that's so transparent. I think even on the best lighting, the best set, the best design, you can see in their eyes if they're not wanting to be there.
Yeah, it's horrifying.
Yeah, yeah. No pressure, but yeah.
So thank you so much for doing that for me today, because today was one of those days that I woke up with, you know, anxiety at 5 a.m. and couldn't go back to sleep, and couldn't really get out of bed, just because. And the good stuff, and hear that. I really appreciate it.
So there it is. There's my interview with me and the absolutely awesome Lindsey Byrnes. I'm absolutely thrilled with how this interview turned out. From the start of this interview, it felt like I'd known Lindsey for years. We were so honest, we let our guards down, and I don't know, I felt that it didn't feel just like a one-way interview. It felt like I was talking more than I'm used to on the Mark and Me podcast, but it felt great. And, you know, it just shows how much I trust Lindsey, and hopefully she trusts me, because it was very insightful. We were very honest from the start, and it got quite dark and quite deep, and that's what I think shows just how much you trust someone in an interview. I urge you all to go and check out Lindsey's work. Go on her official website, go on Instagram and give her a follow, go on Twitter, go on Facebook. She's my favourite photographer in the whole world. She's absolutely awesome, and she captures images that I could only dream of. And that's not something you just can learn as a skill. I think you're born with it, and the eye and the vision that she has is like no one else. So please go and check it out and let me know what you think. As always, guys, please go on to markandme.com as well. On there's my Twitter, my Facebook, my Instagram, my email, but also my Patreon. And I am starting work on a brand new project as we speak. So all the money that goes into my Patreon that supports this podcast will go straight back in. I don't make any money, you know this, on the podcast. It's all about putting it right back in, doing more interviews, doing more content. Right now you're getting a weekly episode, and that takes time and it takes money. And you're getting 4 episodes every month. And you can go on there and sign up for as little as 70p. I want to end today's episode by saying a huge thank you to Lindsey once again. She's so busy, and I just want you to know how much I value your time, and I'm so grateful that you came onto this podcast. I hope you come back for more, because I really enjoyed this episode. I hope you guys out there have too, and I'll be back again in a week's time with a brand new episode. So until then, take care, and I'll speak to you all soon.
Yes, I know his teeth as white as snow. What a gas it was to see him walk her every day into a shady place. The lips she said, "Hey, Polly, 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 let's have a ball. Hey, Polly, 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 let's have a ball. Hey, Polly, 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 let's have a ball." Gigantic, 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 a big, big love. Gigantic, 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 a big, big love. Lovely legs they are, with a big black mess, with a hunk of love. He'd walk her every day into a shady place. He's like the dark